Hi, I'm Miss Haley with the Huntsville-Madison County Public Library, and today I'm going to show you a fun STEM activity using a straw to make a paper airplane. And this is not going to look like your traditional paper airplane. In fact, you might look at it and think I'm crazy and that it won't fly, but I promise you that it will. So for this activity, you're going to need a pair of scissors, a plastic straw or a paper straw. Really, any straw will work. In fact, I recommend you have a couple straws on hand because at the end of this, I'm going to challenge you to create your own version of this. You need some tape. I strongly recommend using Scotch tape, but again, to make this a fun STEM activity, experimenting is really neat with your tools, and you can do what real engineers do and test a lot of different materials to see which is going to work best for your airplane. And then you also need a piece of paper. It can be any type of paper. It could be cardstock. I'm using construction paper. You can use printer paper, whatever paper you have on hand. I'm just using this scrap piece of construction paper. So to start out, we're going to cut two strips of this paper. We're going to cut it on the long edge. So if you're using a computer paper or notebook paper, cut along your long edge, not your short edge. So we're going to cut two strips. They're going to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches wide. It doesn't super matter how wide you make them. I mean, you don't want to make it the whole paper, but just a strip of paper. Do try to cut straight up if you are able to do so. That will be to your benefit. Mine is not perfect, but it will help. Symmetry is pretty important when it comes to a paper airplane. So we're going to cut a second strip about the same width along that same line. All right. So now that you have your two strips of paper, you want one of these strips to be about half as long as this one. And that's going to set up a ratio between our two hoops. We're going to make these into loops. And it's going to set up a ratio between the two that will help our plane stay aloft. In this case, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning that the longer strip is exactly twice as long as our shorter strip. And to do this, it's super duper easy. All you have to do is take your paper, since they're the same length, fold it in half. Go ahead and make a nice crease right there. And then you're going to cut, unfold it, you're going to cut right along that crease mark, like that. So now you have two of these, and you can just go ahead and set one of them aside. So we have two strips that are, one of them is half as long as the other. All right, so next what you're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get a piece of tape on standby here. And I definitely recommend Scotch tape. I've done this before with washi tape, and I feel like washi tape is not strong enough to hold your loops together, and more importantly, to hold them on the straw. So you're going to wrap your paper around into a loop. Go ahead and give it a little bit of overlap, but not a ton, just a smidge. You don't want to do like that much, just a tiny little bit of overlap there, and go ahead and tape it down. Tape it together so that it's a loop. And this is a little baby loop. Our next loop is going to be a lot bigger. So now we're going to get another piece of tape ready. We're going to loop this guy around. Just a little bit of overlap again. You can tell I did not cut in a perfectly straight line. I don't know if you can see that, but they're not even, but that is okay. It will still work. I bet, though, you'd get even better results if you were perfectly symmetrical. Something you guys can test out. Maybe use a paper cutter instead of scissors. And I made another loop. So now I have two loops like this, and I'm going to attach them to my straw. Again, this is something I recommend to make this a real engineering challenge. I recommend you play around with your placement on this, but I'm going to show you how to make one that I know for a fact works. So I'm going to tape my straw, if you guys can see that, on the inside of each loop. And I want the loop to be facing the same way. So both of my loops are on the same part of the straw and they're both pointing up. I don't want one loop here and then one loop there. We don't want that. We want both of the loops like that. Okay, that's pretty important. That said, again, play with that design. I challenge you to engineer this differently and to see what happens. You know what? That piece of tape is not going to be long enough. I'm going to set that aside. Get a longer piece of tape. There we go. So we're going to put this in there. Turn so you guys can see a little bit what I'm doing. We're going to stick that in there. And we're going to stick it down and tape our straw in there. So now I have a loop on the end of my straw. We're going to do the same thing with the bigger one. The bigger one is way easier to tape down. I like to set the straw on top of the spot where the loop loops around, so where I joined the two ends. I think that makes it a little bit stronger, and the flap of that loop is going to be taped down to the straw, so it's not going to interfere with our flight path. But again, test it. See if I'm wrong. I challenge you to do so. So again, we're going to get a nice long piece of tape. We're going to put it down on top of our straw, smooth it down, and tape that straw in there. So now we have our paper flyer. This is our paper airplane. It's finished, super duper easy. But to make this a real engineering challenge, I want you guys to make one of these, but then I want you to make a couple other ones. Maybe make one with a shorter straw. Maybe cut your straw in half and see what happens if it's shorter in between these two spaces. Maybe play with the size of this. Maybe try a slightly bigger loop. Try two straws. Maybe you put a straw here and make more of a pyramid shape. Just try it out and play with your design. Maybe you want to put a wing right here. Just play with your design and see what you can come up with and see how well it flies. And you can test these really easily. You just throw them in the backyard and see which one goes the farthest. You can mark it. You can leave it where it is landing, and then you can see which one traveled the farthest and traveled the best. And just find out what you can find out. When engineers make something, they test a lot of different things, and even if it doesn't work the first time, that's okay, because they have figured out, hey, that didn't work. I need to try something else. And that's part of the scientific process. I'm going to throw this in my room now. It's probably not going to go very far because there's a wall right there, but that's okay. I can't go outside right now. All right, I hope you guys had fun, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun testing out your different paper flyers. Thank you.